tell, you can't see me, but that's fine because I'm here. This is actually what I usually have my keyboard and stuff on top of, but it's also a Johnny, so I mean it's a playmat, so I figured it would work as a background for what we're going to do today. So far, I have made a ton of commander decks. To the point that I have some that I still haven't play tested yet. But there are still some like legendary creatures that I haven't made decks for. Now, I will say, before I start all this, yes, the camera angle's funky. I had this idea earlier today, and so, or not even earlier today, like 6 o'clock or something, so like an hour ago. And I was like, hang on, maybe I can get this to work. So I've been fiddling with the camera, and this is the best I can do right now. I don't really have anything, like, it's still propped up where it was, like where it is when I usually do webcam stuff for me. So it's a funky angle, but it may be that later on I get that, so it's a little bit better angle. I can't quite do top down, so this was the best I could do. But as far as Commander goes, if you are not familiar, Commander is a format in Magic the Gathering where you have a legendary creature that you build a deck around. Now, usually that has to do with the mechanics that are listed on the card's text. So, like if something, well, I will say, I know one deck, the deck I'm going to start with making, I'll go ahead and pull the card out, is Tiana Ship's Caretaker, and I'll hold it up here so y'all can read it. So, it has to have this legendary tag on it, otherwise you can't use it as your commander. There are some planeswalkers that will have the thing, like a bit of text at the bottom that'll say, you can use this planeswalker as your commander. So basically, a commander you usually build around the text that's on here. So for instance, with Tiana, we're going to build a deck that has a lot of auras and a lot of equipment and a lot of creatures to put those auras and equipment on. And one of the other things about commander decks is that you cannot put cards in a deck that do not have the colors on the card. So for instance, for this deck, I can only use red and white cards and colorless, obviously, because colorless is just a given. But being as Tiana is going to be a way that we can get our auras and enchantments cycled back into our hand on the end step, or before the end step, we need to make sure we've got plenty of cards to pull out of the graveyard if something goes down. I will say the other 3 cards that were just paired with it are just the dual land cards that are in these colors, and I know I'm going to at least use a few of these, probably all 3 for this deck. So I just pulled all of them while I was prepping for this. Like there's this one that is one of the life gain lands. There's both of these are just that you can add either red or white mana. So I'll slide these out of the way. It's not super important that we deal with those just yet. They'll just count for our land count at the end, which typically when I'm making, I'll put Tiana there. Now we have the hamp. The focus isn't wanting to work. But either way, there we go. I got it fixed. But as far as commander decks go, usually when I build them, I do a 65-35 split, because a commander deck is one of the 100 card formats, and so with your commander being one of 100 cards, that leaves you 99 more cards to play with, or 100 in general. So I usually do 65 cards that are your instant sorceries, enchantments, your commander, your creatures, and then 35 that is lands. Now I'll fudge that one way or the other depending on how the deck is built, but like I say, that's just kind of my starting point. Now, one of the things that we're definitely going to have to get into is everyone's got their own process on how they build a deck, and that is perfectly fine. Now, I have tons of boxes of, this one's just a legit Magic the Gathering box that was from one of the it's either a deck builder's toolkit or a I can't think of what it is now. It's one of the big sets that you can get like 10 packs out of or something. Right now I'm just pulling out all of these. I've got these sorted mostly by color, so I'm just pulling out all the white cards currently that I've got. And a lot of times what I'll end up doing is I'll pull more cards than I actually need, just because I can always cut cards out at the end, but I'd rather have access to the cards right away than have to go searching for more later, which sometimes that happens anyways. There's nothing that can be done about it, but it'll be alright. So we're going to start at the beginning of the stack, I suppose, which is, the beginning's a good place to start. And the other thing that we may end up doing, there are some other cards or some other words to note about this card. It is an angel card, and it is also an artificer card. There are quite a few cards that deal with artificers, and angels have been a tribal deck for, I think, since the beginning of Magic, because it's easy to make a bunch of really cool angels and stuff. So that may be something that I end up having to look into. There's obviously also going to be some other cards that just kind of get added to the pile just because they're good cards. The other thing is, the commander is referred to as a singleton format, which basically means you can only have one copy of a card at a time, which, if you had noticed, all three of these are different name. All three of these lands have different names. Like the Stone Quarry and the Boros Guildgate are basically both the same card, but they let me just try to fix the come here. The focus is being weird. Can I trick it? Nope. Oh. Maybe it'll fix itself. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'll just be blurred for a little bit, but that's fine. A lot of times there are just cards that you want to throw in there, and with Singleton you can only have one copy of each card, so a lot of times I'll just throw in cards that will potentially just be throw-ins, like Bring to Trial. Bring to Trial is a good card. There's no doubt about it, because it's exile target creature with power 4 or greater. I mean, that's going to be one that has a high probability of just getting in as removal for white. I'm just trying to fix this. I don't necessarily know exactly how to fix the focus, but it's not the worst. At least it's focused in right up here where the cards can actually be read. There are some other cards that I could try to put in here, but I don't know if we need them. There are tons of creatures I could just throw in here, and that would be fine, but I don't want to just flood the deck with unnecessary stuff. Being as you have 100 cards to get through, you want to make sure every single one of them is somewhat important. So one of the cards I might put in would be this Spirit of the Spires, who Hey, it's kind of fixed. And the Spirit of the Spires helps other flying creatures, which our commander flies. So that's another thing to keep track of. Like, so long as, like, a lot of times you want to pick cards that are going to be somewhat synergistic with your commander. Otherwise, it's not going to really work as well. He might be fine, but the thing is, when I look at legendary creatures, I'm gonna actually see. I'm gonna turn this light off and see if it's any better. Nope. Okay. I'll turn this back on because later on I'll definitely need it. But when I look at legendary creatures, it's one of those things I think about. Okay, do I want to use this in a commander deck, like use it in Tiana's deck, or do I want to just make him a commander? Because he could be an interesting commander in a mono white deck, being as he only has the 2 white symbols up in the corner. And so that means that you could only use white cards out of it, but I have plenty, so it may be a possibility. I'll set him off to the side as a maybe thing, but these are like the more likelies. But he's even less likely. I think I'll just put him down this way. That way he's kind of like in his own commander thing. I'm not going to build the deck for him right now, but could be interesting. Because his is a very easy ability to build around, because it's just things get bigger whenever you attack. Let's see what else we got. This is actually an interesting one. So we've hit our first aura, our aura that will synergize with our commander, because that's literally what she brings back. She brings back either auras or equipment. And so if we want to make sure we have plenty of auras in the deck. And this one gives our creature vigilance, which basically means they stay untapped if they attack. And it gives them lifelink for the end of turn if we don't if we play the card on our turn. Which typically that's what I do with auras, but like cards with either instants or cards that have flash can be played on at any real time, so even like on your opponent's turn and stuff. So it's one of those types of cards where you kind of like, you have to think when you might do it. Although this was added during the Ravnica Allegiance set, and Addendum was the keyword for Azorius, which is the blue-white deck from that set. But as you can see, Addendum basically means if you cast something that could be cast like at any given time on just your turn, then you get a bonus for it. So like for that one, the creature gets lifelink until end of turn, which could be really good as just like a drop on my turn or something, and then attack with it. There's a lot of cards that are kind of meh. Actually, I said I wasn't building a Sir Alan deck, but this card basically does the Sir Alan effect just once, and it's whenever it happens. So I don't know. That one might happen later. Got some more token makers. This one just makes some white knights with vigilance, and This one links with gaining life and that kind of stuff, and makes little lifelink soldiers. Those are actually fairly good cards, and actually another thing that ends up happening when I am building a deck is I might come across cards that go in a different deck that I've built, and I'll kind of set them off to the side and be like, ooh, I need to add these to the other one later. And I have a deck that I recently built, which is a green-white token deck, but I couldn't find like any of these cards that are like will generate a good bit of tokens, so I'll set those off to the side, and that way I can put them in to the other deck later. I keep finding cards that basically do Sir Alan's effect. I may end up putting Sir Alan into a commander position. I'm probably going to leave these cards off to the side. He may be a deck we build later, because depending on how this ends up going, there's a good chance I would do this later. Chosen by Heliod, it seems like a fine card. It makes some creature a little bit beefier, and we get to draw a card off of it. And it's just 2, so it'll go in the stack, and it's another aura. So here is an interesting one, because auras are not just positive. This is a negative aura that might help if we want to keep somebody out of our way. Like if we just want to attack big, and if they destroy their creature somehow, we can dig that back out and then reuse it. I'm not looking too much at the saga cards. Like I'll consider them, obviously, just because it'd be kind of dumb to just breeze on past it. But it's one of those things where I kind of just, I don't know if the sagas have to be good, really good to be worth it for this deck, because we're wanting to hit a lot more creatures and enchantments and equipment and stuff. Blessed Light is just good. It's an exile creature or opponent, or creature or enchantment. Exile the opponent would be broken. Healing Grace is just good. Prevent some damage and gain some life. So that just seems solid. And we can just blast it at any given moment. Auramancer could be interesting because we might have to discard some of our auras and stuff, even if we get them back to our hand. So Auramancer may be a good card to dig those back out, even if we have to ditch them. So I don't know how big we're gonna go, but this was the Convoke was the mechanic in the Selesnya or the green-white guild for the Ravnica stuff most recently. And Convoke basically means you can tap a creature for its color or for a colorless mana. Or for a generic mana. Colorless and generic, I have learned recently, are very different. So it's one of those things where doing that may be worthwhile. It'll go in the pile for now. I may end up taking it out. Same with the Loxodon Restorer. It gains 4 life when it enters, and I can Convoke, so I can tap a bunch of my smaller stuff to, or bigger stuff if I really need to actually do stuff with it. There's Collar the Culprit. It's another just solid white removal card. Here's one that has a lot of potential for being dropped in this deck because of it being an angel and it having so many keywords. So if you need some explanations, I will say there is a video that I have done on my YouTube. You don't have to go watch it now, but I explained some of the common keywords and stuff, and all 4 of these I know are in that video. But flying basically means that you can't. It can't be blocked by stuff that unless it has flying or reach. First strike means that it deals its damage first, and then it deals its damage first unless the blocking creature has first strike. Vigilance means it doesn't tap after it attacks, and lifelink means you gain life equal to its power whenever you deal damage to anything. There's just a couple of other cards that were in this little pile that I was looking at that were just kind of just some blah creatures. I'd rather get the interesting looking stuff first. I may try to... I think I've got a good number of angels and stuff, so that may be one of the things I try to build around a little bit. Angels and flyers and stuff. Because building a flying deck is a solid strategy no matter what you're doing magic-wise. But there are obviously some creatures in this that I'm already looking at that aren't flying. Like if I put the Loxodon Restorer in there, it's an elephant. It's not going to be flying. And so is the Auramancer's not an elephant, but it's just a human that runs along the ground and does enchantment things. But I don't know. And there are some cards that are kind of redundant of each other, like Collar the Culprit and Bring to Trial. Both deal sort of with the same thing, except Collar the Culprit is a little more expensive and actually doesn't permanently get rid of stuff. But it deals with toughness rather than power. So on a creature, I also have done a video explaining kind of the basics of magic stuff. So if you really need some pointers as to what to do with magic, I do have some videos on my YouTube. The power is the first number and the toughness is the second number. So basically it's your attack and your health. Toughness regenerates after each turn. So like if you block a creature that has... If we blocked a creature that had 2 power with our Sunblade Angel that it has 3 toughness, on our... on the beginning of our turn, like after their turn was over, that toughness would reset back to 3. So, yeah. It's not super complicated. I'm gonna see if I can fix this. I don't know how I fixed it last time, but... I'm not super worried about it. I mean, I'm basically dealing with up in this anyways. So now I've got to decide what to work on. These 2 cards go in this pile. There we go. I couldn't find the cards I'd already gone through. So, like I say, if I'm open to suggestions, so if somebody pops in and has any ideas for our commander, then I'm not going to say no to it unless I just don't have the card. Because currently what I'm doing is just building with cards that I own. I don't have a whole bunch of expensive ones necessarily. It's just ones that I've collected over the years from like opening packs and stuff. So this is one of those cards where like there's really no synergy with it. It's just a good card for a 1-drop, which in terms of Magic. That 1-drops are just ones that cost 1 mana to play. So it's just one of those that might make it into the deck just so I have something to do turn 1. We have another enchantment that gives us vigilance and some damage boost, or some stat boosting. So that's pretty cool. Lots of buff spells in white, although there's also a lot of kind of situational removal in white. Which can be a really good thing. There are cards like this that I'm absolutely going to add. Luminous Bonds. Basically just, it's a way of removing a creature from being a problem without like actually destroying them. There are some decks that are built around destroying creatures, like even on their side of the field. So it could be a good thing to have that. We could throw dub in there. We're not talking about dubs versus subs. This is a night thing. Not as concerned about the gaining night in addition to its other types, but +2/+2 and first strike is still really good. It's definitely worth the 3 mana. So here's an interesting card that is just like the Luminous Bonds, and actually maybe a little bit cheaper, so it may be the one that we use instead. Compulsory Rest. It does the same thing as Luminous Bonds, however, it also gives the opponent a way to get rid of their creature and gain some life. Now, that might seem like it's a bad thing, like you just ditch the creature and get 2 life, and then you don't worry about that enchantment anymore. However, our commander gives us a way to get that enchantment back, so that could be very interesting. We have another Angel, the Victory's Herald. Whenever it attacks any other attacking creatures, well, it says any attack, it says attacking creatures, so I suppose it's also involved with that, get flying and lifelink. So that is an expensive angel, but that's a good angel to have. Found another card for a different deck. So I'm just going to set that off to the side. Oh, this. So this is a card that gets to be fairly popular in Commander, because Commander is one that is played with, it ends up being large boards typically. So exile all attacking creatures target player controls. That player may search his or her library for that many basic land cards, put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle his or her library. So Settle the Wreckage is basically, I don't know if anyone watching this has heard the term, but it is a board clear, which basically means you just wipe everything off and just kind of start over a little bit on their side. That could be interesting. So Knightly Valor, you enchant a creature, it gets +2/+2 and has vigilance, but also you create a 2/2 white knight creature with vigilance. So that could be an add. And like I said, we may not add all of these enchantments, but it is certainly something that we could add. We've got a Glaring Aegis, which taps the creature an opponent controls, and you give your creature, whichever creature you equip this to, +1/+3. So it's a shield, but it's a bright shield. It's a very bright shield. Let's see what else we have. So the Aven Tactician seems fine. The issue that I would have with it is that it costs 5. It does bolster 1, but after that it's just a 2/3 flyer. So I think we're gonna not add that to the stack. Here's a really good one. The Aegis Angel. When it enters the battlefield, another target permanent gains indestructible as long as you control Aegis Angel. So, we're going to just drop that on the stack. The angels are going to be big, is going to be our thing. So we're going to need to get some smaller stuff in there so that we can actually get some stuff going. Like the Sungrace Pegasus. Simple. It has flying and lifelink, and it's just a 1/2 for 2. That seems perfectly acceptable. However, we can also use that lifelink to our advantage and throw Sunbond on something and get a really beefy boy. It may be the case that we drop a Nyx Fleece Ram in there just so we have a large body to soak up some damage potentially and also gain life every turn of ours. And would it be a life gain deck if we didn't throw one Ajani's Pridemate in? We may not use it. I don't know. We may just focus solely on the air, but who knows? We've got Divine Favor, which gains us life and buffs our creature. That's just good. Congregate might happen. We gain life for each creature on the battlefield. I don't know how wide we're going to go, but that would be good for like token decks especially. So that may go in a different deck even if it doesn't go in this one. Let's see what else we got. There's a few good things. The Griffin Dreamfinder is another one that will go and grab our enchantments out of the graveyard if we need it. Let me just... Here we go. Yeah. So, that could be a good thing to add in there. Let's see. So this is an interesting card, and I don't know how I feel about it. It will probably go in the pile just because of it potentially working. So, Enchanted Creature has double strike. It's called the Armament of Nyx. Enchanted Creature has double strike as long as it is an enchantment. Otherwise, prevent all damage that would be dealt by the enchanted creature. So, if we have any enchantment creatures, which I don't think we do at the... Well, we have one enchantment creature at the moment, but it has 0 power. If we have an enchantment creature, which they do exist, we could give it double strike. Or we could throw it on our opponent's creatures and make it so that they can't hit us at all. So that's kind of neat. On to the next pile. seems okay. It's just a 2/1 flying vigilance. It costs 3, but it might be fine. Especially if we need to work on our curve. But, It's one of those things I could take it or leave it. So Banishing Light I'm not going to probably include, because we only have a few cards that are in the deck that are going to go in the deck. I keep saying in the deck like this is the deck. It's not going to be the entirety of that is probably not going to be the deck. But we don't have a really decent way of getting that back except for like a couple of the creatures that we can play. So I don't know. I think that one may just be off to the side. Serra Angel, however, is just good. It's a flying vigilance, 4/4 for 5. It's kind of a standard for all that sort of thing. There's Take Vengeance, destroy target tapped creature. This being at this angle that I've got it makes it awkward for me to show you all the cards too, so it's definitely going to be something I'll look into. I just need to get the right, mount set up to be able to give a top-down view. We just got a 1/3 flyer for 2. Seems fine. So I'm gonna go back here and take a look at where was it? Banishing Light. So Banishing Light costs 3, and it exiles target non-land permanent until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. Cast Out to me is just absolutely a better version of that. First of all, it has Flash, which means that we can play it on our opponent's turn, or like in the middle of combat or something if we need to. Granted, it does cost 1 more, looks like, but it can also cycle if we just don't need it at the moment and we need to see something else. So that has potential for going in, because we do have ways of potentially getting it back. I have so many auras that give vigilance because of looking through white, but that's fine. I can cut some out eventually. Righteous Blow might go in. It's just 2 damage to attacking or blocking creature. It seems fine. I don't know how heavy we're going to go into the Artificer side of things, but I'll drop it in the pile just for now, and we'll see how that goes. So this is just a solid flyer. It's Flying Vigilance and Lifelink. It's a 2/3 for 3. That's almost certainly going to go in the deck. It's also just, I really like the card. Apparently I hit a bunch of my Kaladesh cards. So now we've got that one in there. Okay. So I think this may be one of my earlier cards that I owned, the Starlight Invoker. It is not great. You can gain 5 light for 8 mana if you've got it, and it doesn't even fit into any of our types on our commander, so it's not the biggest deal to just throw that off to the side. Alright. So we have Sarah's Embrace, which gives it +2/+2 flying and vigilance on whatever is enchanted. That seems solid. We've got the Herald of War, which whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 on it, which is good. It's a 3/3 anyways. And it makes angels and humans cost less for each counter that is on the Herald of War. So that's actually pretty solid. We've got Call to Serve, which makes a non-black creature, which is any creature that's in our deck, because we can't play black cards. It gives it +1/+2, gives it flying, and makes it an angel, which it might be dropped on an angel or something, but I don't know. I haven't gotten that far yet. We've also got the Archangel. This can decide why is the focus all the way up here. Anyway, Archangel's just a 5/5 with flying and vigilance. It's pretty solid. Ooh, that could actually be really dope in this deck. So we have Defy Death, which brings something from the graveyard to the battlefield, and if it's an angel, you put +2/+2 count or +1/+1 counters on it. So that is dope. Especially if we have something like Herald of War that's been dumped in the graveyard, we can instantly make our angels cost 2 less, which could be cool. Restoration Angel has flash, and we can bounce one of our, or we can flicker one of our non-angel cards that we control if we've got a problem with that. So I don't know. Let's see, what else do we have? Another Luminous Bonds. Aegis. So this is kind of an interesting card. I don't know if we'll play it or not, but it is the Loxodon Life Chanter, and it's a shiny one. It says whenever it enters the battlefield, you may have your life total become the total toughness of creatures you control, which is kind of neat. So if we had a bunch of big cards, we could have our, and it would be like higher than our life total that we currently have. That could be a good option. And it can get massive depending on when we play this card. So we'll put that there. We have another elephant in there right now. He may come out, but who knows. That one seems really good. The Bishop of Wings. I know there was a noxious deck at one point that I played against that used Bishop of Wings. When an angel enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life, and whenever an angel you control dies, you create a 1/1 white spirit. So yeah, since we got a bunch of angels, Bishop of Wings seems like a good one. And it's a human, which means it can be some targets for some of our other abilities and things. We'll drop a Pacifism on our pile. because it's just another way to lock out some cards that, or lock out some creatures that our opponents might have. That could be an interesting card to add in. So we've got, it's an Archon, which we don't have any Archons, but it has protection from white, which is kind of odd, being that it is a white card, but that's fine. And creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. So we can tax our opponents for attacking us, which seems solid. So far we got a decent sized stack. But I'd rather go through and make sure we've got plenty of stuff to choose from. Parhelion Patrol seems fine. If we have some little 1/1s that are created from things, we can buff them up with Mentor. The Bird! Healer's Hawk is just kind of a staple for a lot of decks. It's a 1/1 with flying and lifelink for 1. A lot of value out of that. I've put that into a lot of decks. We have the Dawning Angel, which gets us 4 life when it's played. Seems good. There's Aerial Assault, which you destroy a target tapped creature and you gain 1 life for each creature you control with flying. We have a bunch of angels and other flying things, so that's got a good possibility. Let's see what else we got in here. Not seeing a whole lot at the moment. That's just really making me want to add it. I think we just got some better versions of this Griffin. I don't know. Which is a 1/3 with flying and vigilance for 3. I'd rather not spend 3 for something like that. But I think we've got cards that nearly do the same thing that are less expensive. This may be something that we add. The Mirrorsmith. So whenever you cast an artifact spell, which a lot of our equipment probably will be, you may pay 1. If you do, put a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature onto the battlefield. We'll drop that there. And it's an Artificer. So who knows? Could be useful. Hope y'all don't mind when I go a little bit quiet, and just because I'm shuffling through cards. I try to keep talking to y'all, but especially if I'm reading a card, I don't want to like have to reread it multiple times. Might work. So with Angelic Purge, you sacrifice a permanent, which means we could also sacrifice enchantments or equipment, or something like that, which we can get back with our commander. And then we exile artifact, creature, or enchantment. That could be really, really good. Now this one's an interesting one. So this card is another one of those that's like I can't come up with it. Like the pacifism and that kind of stuff. It also includes Transform, which was specifically for like the Innistrad set, which had a lot of werewolves and vampires and that kind of thing that were flipping over. But it lets you move stuff around by sacrificing a permanent, other than this. So that could be really, really neat in this deck. And I don't know if we're gonna face that many cards that flip, that transform, but could be neat. Alright, so that's another pile, another big pile done. Just stack that with the other piles. We'll start on number 4. This has already been an hour. Doesn't feel like it's been an hour. But I'm enjoying myself, so that seems fine to me. I'm not seeing too much at the moment. I think honestly one of the things we're going to have difficulty with is getting cards on the lower end of things. I'm going to drop a Celestial Flare in there. Target player has to sacrifice an attacking or blocking creature, which basically can be just like a way to get rid of a creature that is coming at my face. There is an interesting aura. Blessing of the Nephilim. It gets +1/+1 for each of its colors. Currently we only have one multicolored thing, which is the only one that would get +2/+2. However, I do have a box that has some multicolored cards in it. So I'm actually going to pump the brakes on the cards I was looking at and see if I can find where my red, white, double colored cards are in this. Because if we don't have a bunch of double colored cards, that card's really probably not going to make the cut. So I'd rather spend that slot on something that might actually be useful to us instead. I mean, there are some really good cards in this that I might add. Like there is the Fresh Faced Recruit, which has first strike on your turn. The Sky Knight Legionnaire, which is a 2/2 for 3 that has flying and haste, which means it can attack instantly. There is this card, which is Integrity and Intervention, which is a split card from Guilds of Ravnica, from the newer stuff. And you can do one of the two things on this card. So, but it could be good anyways. It's not going to be a target for this, but it's still a good card. And there's also the Sky Knight Vanguard, which gives us another tapped and attacking little white soldier that in most cases probably won't make it, but it's fine. It's kind of an added bonus on everything. It's mostly that it is a fairly cheap flyer too. There's also the Legion Guild Mage, which is from Boros, the Boros Legion, and it can deal 3 damage to each opponent for 6, or you can tap a creature for 3 mana. That looks like all I got for that color set. So I don't know if the Blessing of the Nephilim is going to get in. It doesn't seem very viable. So we'll drop that back in our pile of stuff that's going to be laid off to the side and just continue on our merry way. Like I said, this is just the way that I typically do deck building. You can do deck building however you want. This card is going to be busted in this deck because the creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, and it gives the creature first strike. Heck yeah. Ooh. So we have a couple of enchantment creatures. We have one that has an older mechanic from the Theros sets called Bestow. And Bestow basically means this creature can also be an enchantment. Granted, when it's an enchantment, it basically gives its effects and its attack and stuff to whatever you enchanted on. But it becomes a creature. It becomes a creature again if it gets removed for some reason. This one has the ability that actually came back in the newest Theros stuff, Constellation, which is whenever an enchantment hits the field, you do some stuff. That one doesn't seem near as strong, so I'm not as tempted to throw it in here. But it does mean that I need to keep my eye out for Theros stuff, because there were a few really good Theros auras and things. This is another older Theros card, Heroic, which means if you cast a spell that targets this, it gets a +1/+1. So if we cast an enchantment on this, make it huge, it gets even bigger. Same with this Lagana Band Trailblazer, which is an 0/4 for 1, but it gets +1/+1 if we drop enchantments on it. So that's just really good. Got some more Armament Nyx. I didn't realize I had that many. What else do we have? That one might be something we put in there. Stave Off. Target creature gains protection from color of your choice until end of turn. Basically means that things of that color can't deal damage to it, destroy it, or target it, or anything like that. This could be an interesting card to throw in there. Pariah. Any damage that would be dealt to me is dealt to the enchanted creature instead. Throw it on one of my opponent's creatures, and then they won't want to attack me. Observant Al-Said, another bestow creature. Gives vigilance and +2/+2. Seems good. It may be that we take a bunch of the stuff out that we've already put in, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Like I say, I'd rather have all the stuff to look at rather than have to go searching for it again later. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Setessan Battle Priest, you gain 2 life. Seems solid in a deck that's built around casting spells on things. I may just end up basically making a Theros type deck with some angels and stuff. But I don't know. Could be a good way to gain life in this deck. So it has landfall triggers, which means that whenever a land is put on the battlefield under my control, not just the first land I put on the battlefield, but whenever a land is put on the battlefield on my control, I can put a quest counter on this, and then I can remove 3 quest counters and sacrifice this card to gain 8 life. It may get cut eventually, but who knows? a little bit left in this stack, and then we'll move on to the last one out of that box. So we'll probably move on to red after that, just to see what all we got. Because we're getting quite a bit of cards to look through for all this. And it may be that I have to just pull the cards this time and maybe set it off to the side and do this again Wednesday to continue like actually building the deck. So this card's interesting. It lets us destroy an enchantment that's causing us a problem, get back an enchantment that we need, or both. Seems good. Don't know how many enchantment-based decks we're going to be running up against, but it was a Theros card, which means that there was a lot of enchantments going around whenever that card was created. So. There are even some creatures, like I've put in this pile already, that were enchantments. So it made it very easy to justify that kind of card. Yeah, let's see what we're looking at. Well, that's not complicated. I think this is a Kamigawa. I really don't know much about it other than the name, to be honest. There's apparently not a very great set for lots of different things. I think it's probably a fine set in general, but like I hear a lot about draft and that kind of stuff when I'm in what I watch, and there's a lot of people I feel like don't necessarily like Kamigawa is a drafting pack, because it was kind of, unless you're playing like only Kamigawa packs, I feel like it doesn't work. By the way, the other card I dropped in here was just Holy Strength. It gives +1/+2. So that's about all of that was. Kind of being a little bit more picky now. We've got a lot of cards that would probably be fine in the deck, but it's one of those things, like I don't necessarily need to put the card in there. I'm getting some very weird cards. So it's one of those things where I kind of don't know what to want these cards to put in the thing. There we go. About that many cards. We'll start looking at more. Yay! Keep in mind, this is just the white cards. What we may end up doing, and I kind of hate to do this, but at least I'm planning for it right now. What we may end up doing, so we may end up just sorting through the white cards today and picking out the red ones next stream. Because I didn't expect this to go this long, but especially me talking about all these cards as I'm putting them in makes it a little bit longer. This one seems solid. Makes us some more angels if we gain a bunch of life. So seems real good. Another life gain flyer. Not quite enough for the card we just put in there, but just about. And we got some other life gain opportunities in this deck. For instance, apparently I could just gain 7 life for 4 mana. Seems like an okay thing to put in. It's more likely to be cut. That is a potentially very powerful card, Spirit Mantle. It gives the enchanted creature protection from creatures, which means it has to be destroyed by some sort of spell. Granted, you could get a black player that has a bunch of their removal, like murder or something like that, and that would kill whatever is equipped with Spirit Mantle. But the fact that we can keep bringing it back so that it basically can't be blocked is very interesting. So, here's the thing. I know we're going to cut white cards out of this deck, but I also know we're going to cut even more white cards than I think we're going to cut, because we also have to make room for the red cards. Granted, this deck is built on a fairly simple premise. So it's easy to find cards to go in the deck. This might go in, this might not. Return to Dust. It's to remove an artifact or enchantment from the game, so exile it. And if you play it on your main phase, you can do one other. So that could be very interesting. I don't know what we're playing as far as like what I would be playing against as far as like enchantments and artifacts that I need to remove, but that could get really dangerous. Alright, so that's all those cards in those piles. Here's the issue though. Now we move on to actually another box. Granted, this box is not full of white cards. I just ran out of room in this box that I'm putting these cards back into to put all of my white cards. So I'm just gonna put these away real quick so that I don't knock them over later. I know this probably sounds great on the microphone, but there's not much I can do about it. Alright, so those cards are put away. Now, like I said, there's not near as many white cards in this box. Well, I say not near as many. It's like half of this box. Which, at the rate that I've been going through cards, means that this will probably be one of the last things we do during this stream, as far as the card sorting and stuff, because I don't know if I'm gonna have time to go through the red cards. So that may be what we'll do next stream. Could be a really easy stream for me to do too, especially if I don't have to change the setup at all. So we'll start with these up here. I'll set some of these out to the side so they're easy to hold. So we're specifically at this point, I don't know if we're going to build a life gain deck necessarily. I mean, it's easy to build a life gain deck. But I know that a flying deck is also going to be very easy to build with specifically white. We got this Angelic Guardian, which if one or more creatures I control attack, they get indestructible until end turn. That could be really powerful. And it's only 6 mana for a 5/5 that does that. And flies. So, we're definitely gonna drop that in there. So far, doesn't seem like much is happening at the moment. However, Sage's Reverie. I draw a card for each aura I control that is attached to a creature, not the creature that I attach this to. And whatever creature I attach this to gets +1/+1 for each aura that I control that's attached to a creature. Yep, that's almost the same as it's another card that exists called All That Glitters, which gives you +1, gives whatever creature it is +1/+1 for every enchantment that you control. So I think we're going to do this one, the Totem Guide Heartbeast, which lets you search for an aura and put it in your hand whenever it enters the battlefield. Also, it's a 2/5, so it's a good defender. A strong boy defender. That one might go in. It'll really depend. It's going to be on the lower side of things because it doesn't really do like lasting effects. Like it gives us life when it enters, but that's all it does. Is it gives us life when it enters, and is also a 4/4 for 6. So it's kind of expensive. So here's another one of those that is, if we have one card, we can do it one way. If we have another card, we can do it a completely different way. Creature gets +2/+2 as long as it's a human. Otherwise, it can't attack or block. So we can either play it on their creatures, and so they can't attack or block, or we can play it on ours and make them bigger. We got Angel of the Dawn, which gives our creatures +1/+1 and vigilance until end of turn. Seems okay. Looking at a lot of angels at the moment. Which, to be honest, there's not going to be that many in the red half of the deck. Maybe that our red half of the deck is going to be our smaller half, and we have a bunch of large angels that we're building up to. That could be a thing. Still just kind of figuring out what I want to do. There's not a whole lot of cards that seem interesting to me at this point. There are some boring enchantments that I'm finding that are just +2/+2 or something. I'm also finding a bunch of like luminous bonds and things, which I can't put any more of in the deck because I've already got one. So we'll just keep looking, see what we can find. There will be some other enchantments that we'll have access to when we look in our red stuff, because the red stuff will allow us to do stuff like haste and maybe probably not trample. Trample is more of a green thing, but first strike is fairly common in that too. There's Oblivion Ring, which I think is basically like the luminous bonds and that sort of thing that we've been putting in there. I don't know if we need Oblivion Ring specifically, but it's nice to know that I have a few. At this point, I'm less looking for creatures and more looking for the auras and stuff, but that has some potential to it. Just because it's a life gain and it's a 3/3. I mean, it costs 5, but it might still be worth putting in. I don't know. So there's Malak of the Dawn, which is flying 2/4 for 4, and if we pay 3 white mana, we can regenerate it, which basically just means it like won't die and that sort of stuff, as far as I can tell. So it seems like we're gonna make a very like Theros type deck. So that may be how I end up narrowing this down. So there are a lot of creatures that are gonna have those like heroic type abilities or something that will get double impact off of being enchanted. So who knows? So let's see, what else do we have? Seeing a lot of cards that are repeats of one that we saw before, but that's fine. It just means that I have lots of decks I can put that kind of stuff in. Now I'm hitting my Thrones of Eldraine cards. Ooh, except for that one. Resolute Archangel is absolutely going to have to go in. Because whenever it enters the battlefield, if my life total is less than my starting life total, it becomes equal to my starting life total. So basically, it resets my life. And in a game of Commander where you have 40 life to start off with, that could be huge. Because that's a late game card. So this could be solid, as long as it is equipped. Which we're going to look at equipment eventually. It gets +1/+1, and it has vigilance, which attacking doesn't cause it to tap. That was just printed before the before that was a keyword that they used. So Gift Earth Immortality is interesting. Where if a creature dies, I can return the card to the battlefield under my control, or under its owner's control, so probably mine. Return Gift of Immortality to the battlefield attached to that creature at the beginning of the next end step. That could be very cool. There's also an explosive card, End Hostilities. Destroy all creatures and all permanents attached to creatures. I think if I'm going to have Settle the Wreckage in here, I won't do End Hostilities. But End Hostilities is a good one to know where it is. So I'll pull that one out just so it doesn't go back in the box. Yep, I'm hitting a lot of duplicates at this point. So it's going to be... it tells me it's going to be one of those types of things where... Gonna be wrapping up here soon. So if we do a life gain deck, Angel of Vitality is going to happen in there because Angel of Vitality is good, especially in Commander, where if you have 25 or more life, it's a 4/4 for 3. So there's the Starfield Mystic, which makes our enchantments cost less, and an enchantment, if an enchantment is put into a graveyard, then I put +1/+1 on the Starfield Mystic. That just seems like value. This actually might be one I add. I might add the Cavalier of Dawn. Because it will help us nuke a creature or something if it's causing us problems. And if this dies, I can bring an artifact or an enchantment back to my hand. So that's kind of neat. What we got down this way? Not seeing much of anything for this deck. That is an interesting card. It's not going in this deck probably. It's a 3/3 for 5, but at the beginning of each upkeep of mine, I put a +1/+1 on each other creature I control. That is solid. I'm going to set that off to the side. Potentially put that in a different deck. So now we're hitting some of the new Theros cards, which means we're going to have a lot more cards to think about. There's Transcendent Envoy, which is just really good. Makes our auras cost less. There's Heliod's Pilgrim, which lets us go look for a card, an aura in particular. Found another Sir Alan. So, this is actually a card I was not aware I actually owned a copy of, and that is very interesting. Daxos, Blessed by the Sun. So Daxos, Blessed by the Sun, is a demigod who his toughness is equal to my devotion to white. Now, devotion it deals with how many little symbols are on all the cards you control. So, for instance, Daxos himself gives you 2 devotion. So, at the very least, he's a 2/2 for 2. But he can get much, much larger on the back end and be a really good defender if you need him. He may not go in this deck, because I don't know if we're going to make a life gain deck, but he could very well be the commander of his own deck. Because I actually really, really like Daxos. I would love to try to make a Daxos deck. Although I did find a few other legendary people that I'm pulling out. I found another Sir Alan that we've talked about before. I'll just drop it here, being as we have 2 copies now. I can absolutely cut it later. And I also found this one. Taranika, a Crowan veteran. She is a 3/3 for 3. And whenever she attacks, you can untap another target creature you control until end of turn. It has base power and toughness 4/4 and gains indestructible, which I actually just recently learned something about this card. It was released in the newest Theros set, Theros Beyond Death. But I will say, I'm gonna see if I can pull this close. Where's the... Okay, so this statue in the back is actually one of the planeswalkers, lore-wise, that died in the Theros plane, I believe. Or he's from... I think he was from the Theros plane and died somewhere else. So he's actually like dead as of right now. It's Gideon, if anyone's concerned. But typically, when he shows up as a creature, he has toughness 4/4. So basically, Taranika makes another creature that sort of becomes Gideon. Kind of neat. So yeah, that is actually all of those white cards gone through. And I'm not gonna make you sit through more cards because that was a lot to go through. I really hope you all enjoyed just kind of sitting and chatting with me about Magic cards. There's a good chance this might be what I do Wednesday and try to finish this deck. Because I don't want to like just start this deck on stream and then just be like, hey, I'll finish this off stream and show you what I did. I'd rather just do it all on stream. That way you all can, if you all are curious, like how to build a deck for your first time, if you've never built a deck, or if you're wondering like, how do I build a deck, which is valid. Now I'll be able to answer that question for you. And it'll live on my YouTube channel for as long as it lives on my YouTube channel, which will probably be just forever unless somebody takes it down, and I don't know why they would. But I figured I was wanting to do something kind of chill today, especially since it was just going to be me. Because I could have played more Pillars of Eternity, which I will play more of eventually. I didn't really want to do Pillars of Eternity for today. Could have done Animal Crossing stuff, but but I feel like this was good. And I could always do this again, like in a digital format. Like I could actually do it in Magic the Gathering Arena. Got a good number of cards there that I actually don't have in real life. But there are some cards that I have in real life that I don't have there, like good old Tiana over here. I have like 4 copies of her, and I just kind of was like, you know what? I should finally just build a commander deck for her. It'll probably be fun. It's aura and equipment based. And I actually recently built another deck that was kind of like that, but it was just a single color. I will say, this took much longer than I expected it to. I had another commander that I was considering building a deck for, especially if this one went really short for some reason. And I've seen decks built for this card, but they can get fairly complicated. And the card that I have contemplated building a deck around is Jodah, Archmage Eternal. This is the tricky part about Jodah. He has all 5 colors on his card. You have to pay, or you may pay, all 5 colors, one of all 5 colors, to cast any spell. So it ends up being a deck full of a lot of very large spells of all 5 colors, and gets to be kind of crazy. So I kind of wanted to build some sort of deck with him as the commander just to see how it went. But that will probably be the next one. And that will take forever based on how long this one took. Being as I've only gone through white so far for this deck, and it took about an hour and a half or so, if I take off bits that are where I'm just talking to you about stuff. So, yeah, like I said, just thought it was nice to kind of chill and play some, or not play some games for once. So just kind of chill and prep to play games. And who knows, this may become, especially if I get a different way to mount the camera and that kind of stuff, being as like, I mean, this is just a webcam, but especially if I manage to get a better way to mount the camera and that sort of stuff, it may be that I could just play Paper Magic with somebody as an option in the future. So who knows? But for now, I think I might actually be done. It looks like the playlist I was using, or the video I was using, is the background music just ran out, so that seems like a good time to call it quits. For now, obviously, I'm not gonna just quit on this deck. It'll be fun to play. Granted, there are a lot of cards to go through. And the weird thing is, I say that Jodah's will take longer, but there are so many cards in this that might just be set to the side for Jodah's deck once we actually get down to it, just because they're just good white magic cards that could go in really any deck. Whereas there are a lot of cards that are in this deck that are in this deck specifically because of what we have to have in this deck, as far as like auras and that kind of thing. So who knows? But we'll probably go through the red cards for this deck, or go find the red cards that we might use in this deck next stream. Then we'll, depending on how long that takes, we'll probably either start building the deck, or start like getting the cards cut out of the piles and stuff. That may be just something that I do off camera, but that seems kind of cheap, because I kind of want to explain to you like what I'm looking for in cards that I'm leaving in the deck. That way you all, like I say, if you all need help building a deck, you can get help building a deck. Because I'm not going to say I'm an expert at it or anything, but I've built a few decks recently, especially. Because that's just one of the things that I want to get good at building decks. And so if I practice and practice and practice, eventually they'll figure something out. So, as always, the this VOD will be up on my YouTube channel probably shortly after the stream is over. So if you missed the beginning of it, you can watch it here on Twitch. If you want to go see anything else that I've done magic-wise, I did a few introductory style videos where it was explaining like how magic works and some keywords and that sort of thing, how a turn goes, like the steps that you go through in a turn. That's all on my YouTube page, which is Toxic Titan Gaming. It's the same logo and the same banner, so that way it's easy to find. If you want to make sure you catch the next stream, because YouTube people, if you're watching this, this happens live, and so it's on Toxic Titan Gaming for Twitch, and like I say, same logo, same banner, so it's easy to find. If you all want to know when I'm going to stream next, that would be on my Twitter, which is at Toxic Titan YT, because gaming was too long. But the name should be Toxic Titan Gaming, and it's the same logo and the same banner, so that it's easy to find. So, I guess until Wednesday rolls around, who knows, maybe I'll do this tomorrow. I'm not doing much at the moment, so it may be that I'll stream again tomorrow, and then just kind of surprise y'all, especially since I didn't stream last week. Because I went on vacation, so it was a much needed getaway from the nothing that's happening around me at the moment. So it was nice to spend time. I went with my family, so it was good to spend time with them for once, because it's the first time we've really spent time together in a while. So I thank you all for understanding about last week. Like I said, I may stream some extra this week just to make up for it. Who knows? And I may actually I've been threatening myself to make a video based on Magic the Gathering recently. And so I may actually get that made and uploaded for Sunday. So who knows? Won't be made today, but if I make it, it'll definitely be uploaded Sunday, and I'll tweet out about it, and I'll probably talk about it on stream if I do end up making it, because I'll make it a few days before. That way I can actually just not worry about getting it uploaded and everything. So, as always, I got to go so that I can do other things. But thank you all for watching, or at least hanging out and listening. And then until next time, have fun, play games, and take care.